Derrick Rose just retired a month ago. And if you ask the average NBA fan to tell you something about him, they'd probably say something along the lines of youngest MVP or unfulfilled potential, or maybe this clip.
At guard, making his third appearance as an All-Star for the Chicago Bulls, Derrick Rose.
D. Rose went from being the youngest MVP in NBA history and standing at the top of basketball to being a washed-up backup on the end of the bench for multiple teams. But he's way more than his unfulfilled potential. This is the legacy of the Rose that never bloomed. Derrick Rose was so good coming into the NBA that he was drafted first overall and was the first point guard to be drafted number 1 since Magic Johnson in 1979. And no, AI doesn't count, he was a combo guard. But was he really that good to be drafted first overall? He was the only Bulls draftee since Jordan to score more than 10 points in his first 10 games. He was top 10 in points per game among all point guards. He was the first rookie to ever win the All-Star Skills Challenge. I know, big whoop. But most importantly, he was the first number 1 draft pick since LeBron James to actually win the Rookie of the Year award. The guy was good as a rookie, really good. And there was no team that needed a really good player more than the Chicago Bulls. Look at these win percentages. 15 games won in a whole season? That's ridiculous. Like, we're talking worse than today's Detroit Pistons. That's tough to do. Since Jordan left, the entire franchise has only won 1 playoff series. It's literally a night and day difference on how they dropped off. So all that to say, a lot was expected from the number 1 draft pick in 2008, and let's just say D. Rose delivered. Because in just his 3rd year, D. Rose led the Bulls to the best record in the league and led them to the conference finals for the first time in 13 years. Even MJ couldn't do that in his 3rd year with the Bulls. But above all this, Derrick Rose achieved one of the biggest accomplishments in basketball, becoming not just MVP, but the youngest MVP in NBA history. And he did that in LeBron's prime. D. Rose took the Bulls to heights they hadn't seen since the Michael Jordan glory days. And bro wasn't even in his prime yet. The man was destined for greatness, and he was well on his way until...
You were crying out that you bypassed the harder team in Miami.
Rose came down bad on his left foot. See him holding onto his knee,
In the first round of the 2012 NBA playoffs against the Philadelphia 76ers, D. Rose suffered the worst injury in basketball. He tore his ACL. A year later, he had the 2nd worst injury in basketball. He tore his meniscus. And that was the beginning of a tragic downward spiral. Year after year after year. His injuries just kept getting worse. It was so bad that by 2017, D. Rose had already gone through 4 knee surgeries. And just like the Bulls, he was cooked. After he was traded away from Chicago in 2016, the remainder of his career was a combination of him being traded and waived until his eventual retirement in 2024. And now you know his basketball history, but how exactly did he change basketball history? Well, there are many ways a player can and has impacted NBA history. It could be through player empowerment like with LeBron, or massive contracts like with Jordan, or insane work ethic like with Kobe. But one particular method stands out above the rest. Jordan had the dunks and mid-range, Akeem the footwork, Steph with the threes, Harden with the traveling, and Derrick Rose had the super athleticism. Who was the first to patent the two-handed back scratcher? Who would drive toward the rim with no regard for who was on defense, but taking it to the hole every time? Most people think Russell Westbrook is the most athletic point guard in NBA history, and I love Russ. But at his peak, D. Rose stomps Westbrook harder than the Lakers did. I mean, look at this.
No call on Boozer. They go, Rose puts it down. Well, Anthony, 6'11". That's unreal.
D. Rose pioneered the playstyle of freakishly athletic and explosive score-first point guards. He was Ja Morant before Ja Morant, and everyone loved it, although he wasn't as good of a shooter. But his impact across the NBA didn't just stop at his playstyle. Derrick Rose helped revive a failing franchise, and not just any failing franchise, the Bulls. You know, the team that had the greatest player of all time? Dude was in the shadow of the GOAT, and he still exceeded expectations. D. Rose brought hope and pride to his hometown of Chicago once again, and it wasn't just on the court. In 2014, he donated $1 million to After School Matters, a Chicago-based charity that organizes apprenticeships for at-risk youth. In 2018, he donated $400,000 to the Rose Scholars Scholarship Program, which provides financial support to high school students pursuing college education. His on-court performance might have diminished, but his philanthropy only increased over time. But if you leave it to me, his greatest achievement isn't his MVP award or what he did for the Bulls. It's his insane perseverance. Despite his countless setbacks, all he wanted to do was play the game he loved. Through the injuries, through the trades, D. Rose kept pushing and pushing and pushing. He took any and every role given to him, never complained, and just kept hooping. And it's this perseverance that gave us one of the most emotional and inspirational games in NBA history.
Exum has it blocked in the corner by who else? Derrick, 2011 MVP, Rose.
And everybody just streams out on the floor to greet him, showing the respect. And they all know what this means to him.
And after all the injuries and lost hope, that game showed us a memory of the D. Rose we knew and a spark of the D. Rose that could have been. People think he got washed because of the injuries, but that game was proof that he was always a great player right till the end. Think about it. If D. Rose was healthy, basketball history would have been very, very different. He definitely would have won another MVP or two, considering that he won one when he wasn't even in his freaking prime yet. At the time of his injury, the Bulls had the best core four players in the league: Rose, Joakim Noah, Luol Deng, and Carlos Boozer. And those guys were all in their prime. Considering that the Bulls were the best team for 2 consecutive seasons, if their offensive motor didn't get injured, it's more than likely that LeBron would have at least one less ring, which would definitely affect his GOAT debate. Healthy D. Rose was an anomaly waiting to happen. With him in the league, Tim Duncan might have one less ring. The Warriors probably won't be a dynasty. And maybe, just maybe, the Bulls wouldn't be doo-doo right now. The possibilities are endless, but unfortunately, that's all they are. What's for certain is the fact that even though Derrick Rose never reached his full potential, he was able to change his career from one defined by potential and talent to one sustained by insane perseverance and grit. He might not have won a championship, but he won something way more valuable: the hearts of all of us who love basketball. That is the legacy of Derrick Rose, the Rose that stays standing.